do what we do each time. We're going to do some case study-based learning and discussions. We're going to have a wonderful segment, which is an interview with the founder of ServiceNow, Fred Luddy. And then we're going to have a strategy discussion with Vivek Kumar, one of the members of the 1M by 1M Premium program. Enjoy the session today, and I'll answer your questions as we go along.
And it's my absolute pleasure, Fred, to welcome you to the show. And we hope to learn a lot from you today. So welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
So Fred, let's kind of start trying to at least briefly understand some of the nuggets that you are willing to share with us. You have built one of the highest valued unicorn companies in enterprise software so far, ServiceNow. The company is currently valued at over $12 billion. So tell us, what is the secret of this incredible success? What can we learn from you? What wisdom are you willing to impart in our audience?
Well, this journey for me, it really started 43 years ago when I fell in love with programming. And I think that if you were to ask what specifically caused us to have the amount of popularity and influence that we do, and I think that's how we measure our success versus just market cap, is that we found a problem that needed to be solved, and we really relied on two things. Number one, it was the people that we hired, and number two, it was the feedback that we got from our customers who told us what to do. And I think one of the great advantages of being small is that if you start to get customers that are interested in what you're doing, they will cheer you on as the underdog fighting against something else. And so they sometimes they will be patient with you, sometimes they may be impatient with you, but our customers have really guided the company for now over a decade. And so we definitely have a passion, and our passion is not about making money. Our passion is about having happy customers who are ultimately going to tell somebody that they're happy with their choice of ServiceNow as a vendor.
So I'm going to double click on two things you said. One is identifying the problem, and two is letting the customer guide you and steer you along, not just cheer you along, but steer you along. And, both of those are hard things to do. And we, in our methodology that we practice in 1M, customer immersion and getting customer engaged as early as possible is absolutely the cornerstone methodology that we teach. So first and foremost, how did you identify this problem? What triggered the idea that this is the direction that you want to go in?
Well, I think identifying a problem is a huge issue, right? A lot of times people fall in love with technology for technology's sake and think, what problem can I solve with this technology? And I think that's a kind of backwards approach. I believe that you have to take a look at how people behave, how they operate, and identify what might cause pain in their lives that you can, or at least something that they just don't want to do day in and day out, and try to eliminate that pain or mitigate the amount of work that they have to do. So for us, it was pretty straightforward. The enterprise software market has been around now for a very long time, and a lot of portions of that marketplace are served by very, very old software, almost as old as me, and I'm 60. And it's also served by very large companies that really don't invest in that software. And I think the great news for all entrepreneurs is that very large companies, it's like steering a glacier. It's just not possible to do. So if you set a different course, you're not going to run into them. You're going to get away from them. But in any case, finding that problem is so difficult. And what my constant frustration was with enterprise software was how long it took to build it, configure it, and deploy it, and how much money it cost. So, you know, if you look at a lot of SAP type deployments, the time is measured in years, and the amount of money is measured in tens of millions of dollars. And I just felt that normal people that have skills in Excel and PowerPoint and those sorts of things, they should be able to configure software, and they should be able to be successful even in building very simple software. And so we went after a marketplace, again, in the enterprise space, which is, I think, by the way, far easier than anything in consumer. But we went after this space because of just I think, personal frustration that I experienced watching people try to implement these huge and just unwieldy packages that are written in, you know, they're written in languages that people don't even know anymore.
You were kind of immersed in that domain, however, in the whole IT operations and management domain. You had been in Peregrine before you came up with the idea for ServiceNow, yes?
Oh, yes, and in fact, my sales pitch used to be, hello, my name is Fred Luddy. I used to be the Chief Technology Officer of Remedy and of Peregrine, and I started ServiceNow to atone for my sins. I wanted to tell people that, you know, the way we did things in the early 80s and the early 90s were very acceptable at that time, and they should be 100% rejected in this century. And so we tried to take a very modern approach to solving the problem that we solved with the technology of the day in the 90s. And we're seeing that, you know, there was a very, very big shift from people absolutely not accepting SaaS things to saying, now I have a cloud first policy, and if I can't get it in the cloud, then I'm going to get software. But that took probably 8 or 9 years to see that shift really take place. So we were at the front end of that as well. But fighting that issue and dealing with it in a simple way I think that's one of the toughest challenges that we have as entrepreneurs.
Right, and the time frame that you're talking about, you founded ServiceNow back in 2003, and the cloud was far from mainstream, far from accepted at the time. Of course, I would say by about 2008, 2009, it started becoming much more accepted, but clearly there was about 6 years before then that when you were doing missionary selling, and I think your sales pitch was fantastic, actually, because built into that is that, hey, I have great domain knowledge, and I'm going to give you that domain knowledge in a new architecture. That's what I'm hearing when I hear that sales pitch. Correct?
Yes, that is correct.
It's very huge, but it's...
I think, you know, I think the other thing that one of the cornerstones of our company is that we have a phrase, we need to be confident, but we cannot appear arrogant.
Yeah.
And so we very much value the input that we got from anybody who is willing to, you know, take time with us. And that's true today as much as it's ever been. But yes, the cloud, there was no cloud when we started. There was no term SaaS when we started. To me, it just seemed like a good business model in that we knew fundamentally how to run our software better than we could teach 1,000 different companies how to do. Mm-hmm. And so that just made total sense to us. So that was the avenue that we pursued. The funny thing about, you mentioned the period 2008 and 2009. If you remember, that was the time of the global economic, you know, we almost had monetary policy collapse, right? Yes. And, you know, things like Lehman Brothers were happening. And that was actually a great time for cloud vendors because, 6 months earlier, you had large institutions that were swimming in cash who were now drowning in red ink. And they were looking for real ways to save real green dollars. Yeah. And the cloud just happened to be one of those. So that was actually a very, very good time for us economically to get our foot into some areas where we were being just summarily shut out 6 months before. So the message there is that there are a lot of crises and there are a lot of economic crises where technology really can help you get out of those crises, and so we as technologists can take advantage of those situations. Yeah,
we actually started covering the Thought Leaders in Cloud Computing series just about that time in 2008. I think is when we started that series, and it was amazing. The shift was visible. The shift that the market was shifting towards the cloud and away from all the older architectures, and cloud was becoming more and more accepted. Every year it was completely visible that the tide was turning more and more in that direction.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, when we first started the business, it was called On Demand. The other reason we called it that is IBM had this big ad campaign, so we thought, well, if IBM's selling the term, we'll use their terminology. But it was funny during 07 and 08, when I would go visit large prospects, especially upper management, they would have a whiteboard in their room, and it would say cloud strategy at the top, and then the rest of the board was blank. So it was clear they wanted to have a cloud strategy, and it was equally clear they had no idea what they meant by that. So it's funny to watch it evolve, and now it all, I think, makes sense, and we all take it for granted. But there was a you're right. It started to tip in 08 and 09, and it was a pretty fascinating time.
But going back to 2003, when you started, and the tide certainly had not turned, you were kind of in the very early adopter market. How did you find these customers who were A, willing to kind of play ball with you, B, had enough vision and enough understanding of the new architecture and what your vision was to really become great thought partners? It sounds like that was very key to your building this company.
It was extremely key, and it turns out that it's a very, very simple thing that we did. And again, remember, we were going after the enterprise space, and we started off selling to small and medium businesses. So I did probably what a lot of other people have done for centuries. I got in my car, and I drove up and down the coast of San Diego County here, and I found 12 companies that I either asked, sold to, or more or less begged to say, use my software. You can use it for free. It's on the internet. You just use it with a browser. And the only thing that I'm going to ask from you is that you give me some feedback. And these people were extremely receptive. Again, you think, okay, here's a CIO of a company with, he's got 15 people working for him. They're kind of excited because now they feel like, oh, I might be part of this, and if you come in and demonstrate that you potentially could help them solve one of their problems, they seem very willing to work with you. One of the people we worked with was it was a local manufacturing company, and he said, wow, in 5 months now, I used your product so that I can get through my SOX audits quicker, my Sarbanes-Oxley audits quicker by proving that I've got a change log. It's really cool. So we pick up a lot of nuggets like that. And then, I never dated much when I was younger because I was always afraid of no, right? If I asked you to have dinner and you'd say no, I'd be crushed and probably wouldn't be able to come out of my closet for a week. Well, so that was why I asked them just to use it. We actually had to hire some salespeople who had the nerve to ask for an order. And our first order, by the way, was for, it was in 2005, and it was for the whopping sum of $2,600 per year. But we had a customer, so we were a legitimate business. We were very happy about that.
Great. So we first covered your story back in February 2009. We did a much larger story a few years later, but the first story we did was back in 2009, February. And at that time, you told me that you pretty much built the company with just $2 million in capital up to that point. And while you had raised about $7.5 million, most of that was still sitting in the bank. And you were already at the time at about $40 million in bookings run rate, not revenue, but bookings run rate. So my question is, given the fact that you were early in the market was not really, you were not swimming in a tide that was in your favor, how do you manage to achieve this much in such a capital efficient manner? And what can we learn from you about building a capital efficient, high value company? Because this is so much part of the philosophy of what we believe in here. We don't believe in raising, $500 million and then delivering $5 million of revenue. We really believe in more your side of building companies.
Well, I think there were just a couple of things. That first of all, a lot of it was ignorance. We didn't know that you couldn't build a company that went cash flow positive so quickly. And so we just thought when we get to a certain level, we should be cash flow positive, a certain level of revenue. We didn't see any reason why software companies should run negative. And that was one thing. Number two was, most rags to riches stories are actually rags to riches to rags to riches to rags to riches. And so I've been broke more times than I've been rich. And so I treated every dollar as though it was my last dollar. And we had a marvelous CFO that made sure that everything was going to be running smooth. And then the third thing, our companies had extreme luck. We sold to a couple of large customers early on, so we were A, lucky to get them. But B, when we told them how we charged, how they paid, what the licensing was, several of them asked, can we pay in advance? Yes, let me think about that for about maybe a half a picosecond, and yeah, I think that'll be okay. So several of the customers, and it was because they just didn't want to deal with their accounting department year after year. So several customers paid us 3 years in advance, including one customer who signed $1 million a year order. And so, yes, and so again, I don't know why we were lucky in this fashion, but had we not been billing in advance, which is from an accounting perspective, now you just have a liability on the books, but you know what? Accounting is just opinion. Cash is actual fact. So we were happy to have the fact that we had cash in the bank.
Absolutely. And when you're bootstrapping a company, cash is absolutely the only thing that matters.
It absolutely is. Staying
alive, that is the only reality that you need to be aware of. So now, of course, from there on to today's, gigantic market cap and so forth, there are companies that manage to survive the bootstrapping phase and do reasonably well. You have done extraordinarily well. So what determines that, delta between doing reasonably well, surviving a good bootstrapping phase, and starting to build a good, solid company versus doing something, off the charts successful? What are the key nuggets in that you have, when you look back, what were the determining factors of that kind of success?
It had largely to do with having the right people at the right time. So and what I mean by that is we hired, I think a lot of employees are appropriate for a company at different points in its journey. Some may be great starters, but they don't want to deal with the larger organizations, so they're great startup people. And some people can go out and just be scrappy, not have any process, not have any operational excellence, and contribute significantly well at the mid-range in the company. But when you get large, you have to start to put process in place. You have to go for operational excellence. And one of the things that happened that was very fortunate, and this is a very personal thing, so everybody has to think about their own situation, but we were fortunate enough to get Sequoia Capital to invest in us. We didn't need the money. What we wanted was Sequoia's business expertise, and Doug Leone came on our board. And Doug asked me the very first meeting, he said, Fred, you have to make a decision, and you have this decision you have to live with for the next 3 to 5 years, and you have to make it very soon. Do you want to be the CEO, or do you want to be the product guy? And I thought about it, and I built the company. We were, I think, $100 and some million in legitimate revenue at the time. I built the company with my brother and my sister, and a lot of people who had never run a large company. And so I told Doug, I said, I'm not really sure what I want. And so he arranged a tour of Silicon Valley to meet CEOs of large and small companies like Polycom and companies like Palo Alto Networks. And at the end of the day, I looked at him and I said, I haven't got the skills to do this, and I have less desire to do this than I have skills. And so I decided to become the product guy. So for our company and for me personally, and I don't, everybody has to take this according to their skills and their passions, their desires. The thing that really propelled this company was my decision to get a CEO, and we hired the best CEO possible, Frank Slootman, who brought in the best CFO, Mike Scarpelli, who brought in the best sales guy, David Schneider, and it's really with that transition from going from a scrappy startup company that with significant amount of cash and revenue to becoming a company of operational excellence process, but still had an innovative side. So if you look at where I sit on the other side of this wall, well, in a very open space with 23 other people, and we have a startup inside a huge company, and that's where we do a lot of the innovation. But really, I think you have to decide: am I the right person to take this from where it is to its full potential? And sometimes you'll decide, I don't want it to reach its full potential. I'm happy. I'm comfortable. But for us, we thought we really have an opportunity here to build a company that's not a flip company, an exit strategy company, but a company which is a legacy. And I just think that would be something to have a company. My whole dream is to actually tell people I work for a service now, and to not have somebody say, what do you guys do?
So, but you did take the company from 0 to 100 million, of, as you said, legitimate revenue. And that kind of growth for somebody who doesn't like to ask for money is a very substantial achievement. And the fact that your CEO could, the outside CEO could come in and scale it way beyond. You had set the foundations, you had set the positioning, you had built a product that was selling that customers wanted. And maybe you didn't understand all the, how to build great high velocity channels and et cetera. But from a product positioning point of view, it strikes me that you had already set it up for that kind of success. Is that a correct observation?
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. We had a very long-term vision 11 years ago, and we've only executed about 30%, 40% of that vision.
Yep.
And so I do think we set an extremely good foundation. And again, that was based on 20 years experience prior in the marketplace. Yep. So, and I think, for me, when I meet people with lots of experience, I say, well, part of what's in your head is knowledge, and part of what's in your head is baggage. And we would like you to leave your baggage at the door. But it's hard to discern what I know is knowledge and baggage going forward. But yes, I think we did set a very good foundation. And I think what would have happened had we not made the CEO switches, our growth curve would have leveled off, I think, a lot quicker. Yep. And so bringing Frank in to really build the business side of the business more than just the technology side of the business really was beneficial to the customers, the employees, everybody.
Yes, but I would still maintain that from, we cater to a very early stage entrepreneur base. And for that stage, getting the product and the product positioning right is critical. Without that, having any amount of channel is not going to help you scale a company. You kind of, the success of the extraordinary success happens when you have the right product and the right product market fit. It's not by building channels that you can circumvent that requirement.
You're absolutely right. And so what we did, if you take a look at what we did and what Frank did, what we did before Frank was we did set a very, very strong foundation, and we had a very good model of how you go to market. And Frank simply, in its easiest, simplest form, he scaled out that ability, right? So it wasn't like there was a lot of new invention going on, but all right, we know how to handle at the time 50 salespeople. How are we going to manage 500 or 1,000 of them, yeah, and make sure that they're all productive in 20 different geographies? And so those were the sorts of things that Frank brought. You were right. Had we, the product popularity is based on the entrepreneurial foundation that gets laid and the reactions that you have to the initial customer base. But once you get solid, then you have to go for this market grab. Because if you don't go for the market grab, then you're going to be more vulnerable to other people attacking you, right? But if you go for that market grab and you keep your customers happy, you can live for a very long time and very profitably.
I personally prefer strategies where, like you, entrepreneurs take a good time to bootstrap and really build that foundation in a solid way before inserting huge amount of scaling requirements. When you have venture capitalists involved, there's a very fast growth expectation and so forth. And if you try to do that without a solid foundation, without the product fully understood and positioning fully understood, basically people fall on their face.
They have no choice. Well, I work with an exceptionally bright guy, Jay Berlin, and his prior company, the day that the product was just about finished, the CEO went and hired 40 salespeople. They had not one customer. And the only thing so they had no idea, right, if they were actually solving a problem or if the solution to the problem even worked. And I think so many people, I look at the burn rate of some of these crazy valued companies, and I just wonder, where is all that money going? So I think, as an entrepreneur, you really have to do everything. I saw a great documentary on video games, and they talked about the early gamers, where they had to not only write the programs, but they had to come up with the storyline, and they had to even compose their own music, right? And now at Electronic Arts, this is a multi-year, multi-tens of millions of dollar production, right? It's the same as making a full-featured film. But so I think entrepreneurs, we're that person that built Miss Pac-Man, right? We have to come up with a storyline, we have to do the programming, and then we got to go around and sell it to bars, right? It's something that they can make money with. So, our way we do things is not maybe as sophisticated as it will be done later on, but we really have to have, in my estimation, the understanding of the complete business to really get the ball rolling. And it's not money that's going to do that. It's going to be smart. It's going to be a lot of humility. It's going to be putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, doing things that you don't think that you're going to, be doing for a long time. But, if you don't go through that discomfort and feel it firsthand to understand the other problems of the business, I don't think you're going to be as successful as you possibly could be.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fred. We could continue this conversation for the rest of the show today, but I know you have to run, so thank you for being with us.
Yeah, it's so fun always talking to you, and we only talk every 5 years, so please have me back sooner.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hope you enjoyed that segment with Fred. We're going to do next a strategy discussion with Vivek Kumar. Enjoy.
Vivek, please unmute your line and tell us what you're working on.
Hi, Sramana. Thanks for having me on again, and hi, everyone. So I'm Vivek. I'm one of the founders at Click It, and you've probably seen some of this already, Sramana, but wanted to just go through this again, and then I've taken some feedback on what you talked about. So we kind of lead with this exciting momentum we have where we signed a $500K annual contract, which is over $500K, most of that being recurring revenue with a Fortune 500. So the most exciting part of that is proving a solution, not a tool. Tackling a market of 1 in every 4 workers in the U.S. That are in these high turnover environments, think distribution centers, call centers, retail, fast food, certain healthcare, and more. And we're very much starting in the distribution center space. But 1 in every 4 workers. Next slide, please. And what's interesting is about 75% of the reason these workers quit is because of avoidable turnover. So management, coworkers, a sense of pride in the workplace, promotional opportunities, even the work itself. They're all opportunities to improve the avoidable turnover, reasons people are quitting their job, and that's what helps. What Click It helps to solve. So if we go to the next slide, we can take 1 in every 4 workers. There's 40 million workers. Next slide, please. It's 100% annual turnover, so the whole labor force is replaced each year, and the cost to replace them about $3,000, anywhere from $2,000 to $9,000. Multiply them together, and as you were right, Sramana, this isn't the TAM. This is the pain of the cost that businesses are spending each year to address high turnover. It's $120 billion being spent every year. What we're doing as we tackle this market is we've gone through our target market of customers. We've gone through these 10Ks and looked at kind of those that list high worker turnover as a risk factor, as well as a number of distribution centers, and that's how we've been doing our initial outreach to identify customers that we've been signing up. And so on the next slide, you'll actually see a listing of our product dashboard, how it looks kind of on and everything kind of opened up. This is what administrators actually utilize to create campaigns, manage the kiosk that we use. Kiosk being kind of tablets mounted in a time clock, the break room, and the restroom that workers interact with on a very regular basis. On the next screen is what workers actually see, where they provide their latent thoughts about what's affecting them. All of this is anonymous, super high engagement, about 100 responses every 7 to 10 days if there are 100 workers in a given facility. This is sort of the level 1 screen. This is the level 2 screen, part of the broad 3-phase approach, where we identify a broad problematic area. We then dive on and come up with a set of solutions, and it works. This is a customer testimonial saying, hey, before Click It, this was my retention. As you can see, it was about 80%. After, it was about 25%, so 3x plus increase. And since that time, their Glassdoor reviews have actually gone up as well, which is super awesome to see, and completely third-party validation of the solution working. About $579,000 in annual cost savings achieved by this increase in customer retention. And the math is pretty simple. On the next slide, we'll see that if we prevent just 1 worker on average per month from not quitting who otherwise might have, it makes money off our solution. Handful of paying customers, including some Fortune 500s. If we click on the slide, you see that the total contract value is over $2 million on a fully rolled out basis, and the median sign-up time has only been 3 months from intro to paying. In fact, intro to MSA or large contract, 6-figure contract, under 7 months. So very fast deal velocity, very little spend to acquire customers, going to 15K MRR, on path to hit 40K MRR by year end. That's 22% month-on-month growth from July to December. It represents a 3.67x increase in MRR from 15 to 52, and currently only burning 14K a month with 81% gross margins. So we can hit profitability by year end going into Q1 2020, which we're pretty excited about. Pipeline is filled with a lot of companies that are on the Fortune 500, Fortune Global 2000 teams. Myself, John Goldschmidt, and Defender Tawari all worked at leading companies and studied educational institutions from Tata Consulting Services, Penn, Wharton, Blackstone, a couple patents that we have issued and pending. We've got a lot of passion to execute on this opportunity. Next slide, please. Okay.
I have just one part here. I don't know what you intend to do with the Fortune 4 slide, but if you were talking about the pipeline, I mean, there's two things that I would like to see in the slide deck. One is TAM, the other is the pipeline, because this is a very compelling story that you're telling here. And if you can follow this up with a pipeline right after this and show that you've just closed $500,000 account and you have another X number of $500,000 accounts in the pipeline that could close in this time frame is your estimate. That would be a very, very comforting story for investors.
Yeah, that's a great point. We do have a list. We do have a detailed sheet. We didn't want to kind of share it in maybe the public forum specifically yet, but that's.
Don't do the detailed sheet. Maybe in the detailed sheet, I wouldn't show that in the investor pitch either. I would show just like a,
Here's who we think is going to sign up next.
Deal. If there are, let's say, 3 other $500,000 deals that will close next quarter, another 3 that will close in Q2. I mean, whatever, something like that. If you could show that, that is a very compelling story.
Cool. That's great feedback. Yeah. So we have a couple names, and we can reposition that slide a little bit to make it more specific. So that's great feedback. Thank you.
And you have a TAM slide?
The TAM slide. So we were working through the TAM sort of, which is a $300 million right that we're going to work on combining some of these other industries we've talked about to kind of get to that $1 billion plus. Yeah. We've got a call center. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So basically, for those of you who are listening, Vivek has specific where he's calculated the $300 million TAM. My dish was to, in fact, I saw the interview that I did with Mark from Rendezvous, Mark Helmsberg. You may want to look that up. It's in our curriculum as well on the website. If you need me to ping Mark, I can do that. I think they would be a reasonable lead, and this probably will fit their strategy as well. The one, one thing that you need to be aware of when you're talking to the investors in the coast, especially Silicon Valley, they're all chasing AI like crazy right now. And this is not an AI company. So if you are in competition, any investor does only a few deals per quarter, right? Or per year even. So if you're in competition with a deal that has AI, you're going to lose. So, so you need to find investors who are not so crazy focused on AI at the moment. That's just something that to keep in mind. I think you're solving a real problem. You're closing real business, real deals, and from very, very credible companies. So you want an investor that is pragmatic and looks at that and decides that, yes, I want to do this, not somebody who's looking for deep tech only.
Right. That's fantastic. That's great to know, and thanks for mentioning them. Yeah, maybe a quick kind of, I'll review that video, and if you want to maybe put in a good word, that'd be awesome, please.
Yeah. All right. So circle back with me on that Monday, and I'll do what I can to help you.
Perfect.
All right. Okay. Good luck, Vivek.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all this help. It's super helpful. These are the TAMs that we need to combine at least we can add in call centers to start and maybe retail fast food. Yeah. So thank you, Sramana. I'll follow up.
Hope you're enjoying the session today. Please, by all means, ask as many questions as you would like to, and I will make sure we answer them as we go along. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.